Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Noelle and in this video I'll be painting a sunset over Queen Anne Hill in Seattle. This isn't meant to be a tutorial, but I will be sharing my process and you are welcome to try painting this yourself. To begin, I taped my paper so it can lay flat while I'm working, while also allowing me to paint to the edges of the paper on two sides. I like to reuse my tape so this isn't as wasteful as it appears. I started my first of 5 washes for the sky with Ultramarine Blue by M. Graham and gradated that color down to white near the horizon. For this piece, I am using Arch's cold pressed 100% cotton paper, which absorbs the paint better than cellulose paper. Because of this, I can paint several layers on top of the previous ones without lifting paint. This also works better with staining colors. Once the first layer dried, I painted another layer of Ultramarine Blue as well as Indian Throne Blue by Daniel Smith at the top to make it darker. My goal for the water was to paint light reflections from the land by painting around the lighter areas, but that doesn't work very well, so I covered up my first attempt before the paper dried. The water should be a rough mirror of the objects above it, so I painted the land reflection dark blue and began the sky reflection in the lower right corner. To paint the light reflections now, I used a slightly damp brush and lifted the wet paint up. I used a flat brush, but you can use a round brush as well. It might take a couple swipes to lift the desired amount of paint up, and adding a little bit of clean water to a spot might help also. In my third sky layer, I laid down a wash of clear water and added a mixture of, I believe, Indian Yellow and Quinacridone Gold by Daniel Smith. I also added more blue paint to the sky to make it even darker. I find that a flat brush works really well for painting gradients. After that layer dried, I painted on my fourth sky layer and added the oranges and reds, which was a mixture of the yellows I used earlier, Pyrrole Scarlet by Daniel Smith, and Burnt Sienna by Winsor Newton. This isn't the most vibrant color, but I even made it more saturated than my reference photo. To add the sunset colors to the lake, I add paint little by little in a wash and smooth it out with my brush until I get a small gradient. In the same wash, I added more dark paint under the land. The near black color I used to paint the land with is a mixture of numerous paints, but mostly Indian Throne Blue, Pyrrole Scarlet, and maybe Perylene Green, all by Daniel Smith. Most of the time when I paint a dark color, I'll do it in 2 washes, but I was satisfied after the first layer, so I left it like that. The mountains in the background were painted with a slightly more purpley version of the land paint mixture and had more water to appear lighter, establishing distance. The next layer of paint on the water is basically just like the last one. I darkened the land reflection and added more pigment to the sunset reflection. To paint the clouds, I wet the paper with clear water and apply a cool purpley gray paint mixture in horizontal motions. I like to let the paper dry a little bit before painting because the paint won't spread as far and I'll have more control. I'll also mess around with the shape of the cloud since I know that I won't lift the paint underneath. The last strokes made are the sharpest because the paper was the most dry, and when it is drier, the paint can't spread as far. Try not to do this too late though to prevent uneven drying. I layered the paint very lightly and softly to add a hint of color to the light reflections. To paint the city lights, I used white Holbein gouache and a liner brush. I started off with just white and then mixed in yellow and orange watercolor paint for colored lights. And just to add a little bit more shine, I painted some gouache highlights in the water. If you would like to be a watercolor purist, you can apply masking fluid at the start of your painting instead of gouache. I used the tip of a mechanical pencil to dot the stars in gouache. I stole the idea from Emily Mackey Art, who I recommend you all check out. She posts great acrylic and oil painting tutorials. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you are curious, all of my art supplies are listed in the description below. Feel free to share what questions or comments you have. If you enjoyed watching this video, consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribing to my channel where I post other art videos like this one. You can find me on my social media. I am the most active on my Instagram. Thank you so much for watching and make it a great day.